Slavery, freedom, and resistance at Stagville. From 1776 to 1865, the Benningham and Cameron plantation spread across 30,000 acres of land. An 1804 marriage united the Benningham and Cameron families, and they jointly invested in slavery at Stagville. By 1847, the Camerons inherited complete control of the plantations. Here, enslaved people built sprawling plantation complex of farms, workshops, and mansions and mills. Year after year, enslaved families suffered separation, violence, hard labor, and disease. Amid the horrors of slavery, they continually resisted, claiming some measure of freedom through sabotage, direct action, cultural traditions, freedom seeking. By 1859, over 900 people were enslaved here. Today, historic Stagville is a 165-acre state historic site. Stagville is one of the few plantation sites in the United States that focuses on the lives, culture, and labors of enslaved African Americans. Through careful research, this site documents the history of enslaved people and their descendants on the Benningham and Cameron plantations. On this tour, you will encounter powerful stories of slavery and freedom at Stagville. As you listen and watch, I invite you to remember the enslaved and emancipated people who shaped Stagville, North Carolina, in the United States. The dwelling foundations. Many enslaved domestic servants lived in these cabins. They worked long days and nights under constant surveillance of enslavers. This domestic work was often intimate and exposing, as slave servants washed, dressed, and attended their enslavers. In close quarters, the Camerons referred to enslaved people as family, yet demanded a spirit of subordination, and used violence or humiliation to enforce it. We also see the kitchen foundation. This kitchen building was a halfway space between the Benningham house and the slave quarters. Enslaved servants and cooks used their skills at crossing between these two spaces to survive. We also see the Horton Grove. Take a moment to walk with me along the row of houses. Built about 1851, these are the only preserved slave dwellings from the Benningham and Cameron plantations. Enslaved people survived and resisted here, building homes and community in captivity. These houses were places of rest and strength for enslaved families, but the refuge of these rooms was fragile. James Curry remembered Paul Cameron's reputation for unpredictable, violent visits. Cameron would have one or two of the slaves tied up and whip them unmercifully, for no offense, but merely, as he said, to let them know he was their master. Despite the dangers of enslaved people, they resisted in and day out, every day in radical ways. In the rooms of these houses, friends and families weighed their risks and choices. How could they push back against the dehumanization of slavery and survive? A grandmother named Rosella sabotaged her sewing work. Scylla, her daughter Mary Walker, snuck out to attend secret church meetings where they prayed for liberation. An enslaved field worker named Tony was accused of burning his own foot so he would be unable to pick cotton. Jim left his quarters night after night despite harsh lashings. He was going out in the dark to visit family, to trade, or be his own person, if only for a few hours. In some areas here in the Horton Grove, there are prints from the past. And there's also the Hart House. Why does the house look so different? This slave dwelling was renovated by the Hart family, a formerly enslaved family who sharecropped here until 1954. Let us remember the enslaved and emancipated people who shaped America.